Welcome back to Father and Son Fix. In this episode, we're going to show you how to clean and fix your window fan. Now, of course, the first step is to take the screws out. But before we get to that, let's take a look at, how dirty this window fan is. We were using it in a room that we were rehabbing, and it took a lot of dust and drywall dust. And so, let's get into it, and let's get cleaning. So, first step, of course, unplug it. We probably don't need to mention this, but you have to be on the safe side. You should unplug it and get it to a clean area. Now, the screws are all over the window fan, all around the edges, and we've already removed some of them here. We're just going to remove this one that's holding the panel on right there. The main thing you want to watch out for are any screws down in the holes, to make sure that you've gotten those. And you also have to keep an eye out for the little screws that may be hidden in some of the areas underneath the handle or in other locations. And you're going to have some of these clips on the end, which are used for adjusting and holding the piece that slides in and out to fill the gap in the window. And we'll have a note about that later in the video. You have to be careful when you're taking it apart. These clips simply pop out. We're just using the same screwdriver here. Watch that you don't pinch your fingers. Don't use excessive force so that you don't break the clips. And you'll be able to pop them out pretty easily. You may be even able to pop them out by hand. We use the screwdriver here just to get a little bit of extra leverage. Again, not using a lot of force. Okay, and then you just wiggle that guy right out. There we go. Set those aside with the screws, keeping everything nice and tidy. And now we're ready to take the cover off and get more direct access to the fans underneath to clean it. When you lift the cover off, watch out for any screws that might fall out. Make sure you keep track of those and put them back in your little pile there with your other screws. That way you can be sure to have them all when you put it back together at the end. Now we're going to show you here briefly why we recommend taking apart the window fan to clean it. If you have a tool like a brush, you can't get access all the way down to the fans. And you'll see here with the brush, doesn't quite get down there. Of course, you can try things like compressed air. In our experience, that can be not effective enough to loosen some of the caked on dirt and grime, especially like this. Now you're going to get a closer look at it's just like the hair and the drywall dust and other dust just binds itself onto the blades as they're spinning around, and compressed air isn't going to be enough to get that out. So we recommend taking the cover off, and all you really need at that point is paintbrush, and we'll show you in a moment how you can use a rag. You can use some Q-tips as well if you really want to get into it. As you go along, it's good to vacuum away anything from the mechanism as well, and that can be helpful just to get some of those areas that are harder to reach with the brush and to remove any of that dust. Of course, as you're working on it, you don't really want to be breathing in too much of that dust as well. If you're sensitive or if your lungs are sensitive, definitely wear a mask while you're doing this, just to be on the safe side, because a lot of allergens and other dust are going to get caught up in the fan, and you don't want to start breathing that again. Now, here's a technique you can use. This is effective in a lot of different cleaning scenarios, car vehicles and boats, and inside on your couch and other areas. When you have a crevice like this, use a paintbrush or another brush to lightly loosen up that dirt and then vacuum right behind it, and then it's going to suck it right out. It makes an efficient 1-2 combination there when you've got your brush and your vacuum going at the same time. Of course, you're going to want to clean off the grill. So you want to clean off the fans, and you want to clean off the grill, both sides as well, for any of the dust that gets caught in there. It's important to get in some key areas, especially back here behind the fan where the motor is and the heat sink for that motor. Cleaning that off is going to make sure that the fan doesn't overheat and really ensures that that mechanism is going to last as long as it possibly can. Want to lightly get around some of the wires as well. You don't want a lot of dust and really building up anywhere, but especially around the motors and the switches. This is only from that little bit that we were doing right behind the motor. So that shows you how much you can have left over if you don't get back in those little crevices there. All right, now let's move on here to the next step. We're going to use a good old-fashioned rag to follow up from the brush. Sometimes the brush doesn't get everything off, and this is a nice finishing touch. This is from an old t-shirt. We just tore it apart, and we're just using this rag with a little bit of water to carefully clean off the blades. And this is the finishing touch that really makes it look like it's brand new. And we'll show this to you in a moment here. What do you like fixing? Is there anything around your house that you take pride in fixing and maintaining? Let us know down in the comments. For us, it's really important to maintain what we have. We give thanks for what we have, and look at the difference here. Wow, it's like a brand new fan. I know it's something small. For us, it makes a difference. And then we also know when we're running this fan again the next time, it's going to be operating as best as possible. And if we're bringing in fresh air from outside, we're not going to be blowing in any of that old dust from the year before. And you can do this on a yearly basis or every few years as you see that the fan needs to be cleaned. Now we're going to show you some things to watch out for as you're cleaning your fan, and also how to fix your fan. The first is this piece that extends to fill the gap in the window. You can set that aside as you're in the process of cleaning it. We'll get back to that in a little bit. The other thing to watch out for is the switch. And in the process of cleaning or removing the top, that switch, the plastic part that extends out of the case, can often become disconnected or become loosened from the actual switching mechanism. So let's get a close look at that, and you can see what we're talking about. See that rod there sticking out from the actual switching mechanism? The plastic part is not seated in it. Now it is seated in it correctly. So that's something you're going to watch out for there, that seats back into it correctly. And then once you've gotten that back and seated correctly, check the switch operation to make sure that it's functioning correctly. And we're going to do a little more light cleaning on the other side of the fan here. And then we're going to show you how to reattach the portion that extends out of the fan. Now, this piece here, and it looks like we're going to need to get in and clean that as well. That piece holds on to those plastic tabs so that when it extends out, it's still holding on to the interior body of the fan. Now let's take a moment and clean this out as well. I'm just going to use, this is a dry paintbrush, by the way, sweeping out those channels, those accordion channels of that piece that flexes out. Now, as you can see, if it's not connected to those tabs, when you go to slide that open, oh, there's going to be a gap in the window there, and you don't want that to happen. And if you look, you'll see that piece usually has a plastic portion with an open part that's going to align with the tabs just like that to make sure that piece fully fills the gap in the window. Okay, now we're back to reassembly, and you want to line everything up, and the switch, of course, as we mentioned, be careful about that. Make sure that lines up correctly in the case, and check from the top and the bottom to make sure that you're not pinching the wire and everything's lined up correctly. And here we go, back in reverse order. I'm going to put those clips on first, which makes it easy because they're going to hold the body together while we put the screws in. And it's a good idea to check the operation of the sliding piece before you screw it all back together to make sure that it's connected properly, as we mentioned. And then you can engage those tabs just to hold everything as you go ahead and screw everything back together. Now, the primary point when it comes to screwing everything back together, the screws that you can get to very easily that are around the edge of the fan, those are going to be the easiest to deal with. The primary challenge you're going to face is having to do with the screws that are recessed in the holes. And we're going to show that to you in a moment. Here we're going around and we're screwing in around the edge of the fan. There's no particular order, but to us it makes sense to screw around the edge before doing the pieces in the middle, just to make sure those edges are nice and aligned correctly. And we're just speeding through this for you so you don't have to be bored by it. Now, when it comes to doing these screws in the recessed holes, try and remember the amount of tension at the very end of screwing in the screw on the frame, and you'll know when you get to the bottom of the screw here. Don't want to over tighten it, that's important. So after you get a feel for it, you can go ahead and screw in the rest of those screws. Make sure you're not missing any, just like when you took it apart. Check for any of those screws underneath the handles or in other areas. And here's a quick cleanup just to get rid of all the dust, keep our work area nice and tidy. And here's the fan after thoroughly cleaning it. What a result. For us, it feels like a brand new fan. We didn't go totally crazy here. You can go further and use some Q-tips. By all means, get it thoroughly clean. And finally, the last test, carefully test it. Ta-da! Way to go. If this helped you, leave us a comment down below. Let us know where you're located. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate your support, and we hope you have a great day.